Hello everyone, and welcome to Fayette County Historical Museum. I'm Sam Harvey, President of Historic Connersville, and I'm going to give you a little tour today of our great facility. I want to first point out some of our cars. Of course, Connersville was known as Little Detroit, still is known as Little Detroit, because up to 16 different makes were made here. We have examples of 5 cars that were made in Connersville. First one I want to show you is a 1913 Empire. It says Indianapolis on it, on the wheels, but they moved here for 3 years because they didn't have room in their Indianapolis plant. This car we acquired several years ago at the Auburn Automobile Auction, and it's all original. This has original paint and original upholstery, and really when you can find cars that are all original, even though it's tattered in places, it's much more valuable. I saw this car come off the auction block. Rick Lemon and some others went up to get it, and it was smoking, but it ran, and it's quite a car. If you look, the steering wheel is on the right-hand side. That's not because we drove on the wrong side of the road, like our friends in Europe, but it was because horse-drawn carriages were the same way. The reins would be on the right side, and that was so that the driver could watch the side of the road, watch the ditch. Our roads were not like they are today. And it was more important, there wasn't that much traffic, it's more important to stay out of the ditch. Our next automobile here is a 1922 Lexington. We acquired this car several years ago, and the Career Center restored it for us, and they had it running. It has an Ansted engine. The Ansted name is well known around Connersville. Lexington started in Lexington, Kentucky, but they didn't have room either to continue production. So the forerunner of the Chamber of Commerce enticed them to come to Connersville, where we had plenty of factory space, and they built the cars here in the 1920s. I'd like to move along then to what is one of our showpieces. It's in front of our showroom window. This is a 1924 McFarland Town Car. We're not sure, I'm not sure how many were made, not many. I think this is one of 2 that survives. Fatty Arbuckle had one. Al Capone had one. This was the fastest, most powerful car of its day. One big problem with it, though, was that it only had rear mechanical brakes. So it didn't stop real quick, but it was really fast, and the outlaws could run away from the cops in it. The car sold new for around $9,000, which would have been comparable to a Rolls Royce. The most expensive Cadillac at that time was about $5,000. This particular car has a massive 572 cubic inch engine. It's a 6-cylinder, but it has 18 spark plugs, which gave it some extra power. A beautiful car inside and out. If we can show you the inside, had a very plush interior. One of the jump seats is up. The grill there on the floor is a heater that would put heat into the cabin off the exhaust pipe. We're very fortunate to have this car. We acquired it, I believe, in 2001 from the Cruise auction in Auburn, Indiana. One of the most famous cars of all time, and one of the most stylish, is the Cord 810 and 812. We're very fortunate to have one here. This car runs. We drive it to keep it running, and it's certainly a car that was way ahead of its time. E.L. Cord moved his operations, the bulk of his operations, from Auburn to Connersville in the early 30s because the people of Auburn did not want him to expand his factory there. We had plenty of factory space here under roof with the world's first industrial park up on 18th Street. This car, way ahead of its time, has flip-up headlights. It's unibody construction. It's front-wheel drive. It has an electric shifter, which somewhat a forerunner of today's automatic transmission. This was the first car not to have hinges exposed on the exterior. As we look at the McFarlane, you can see up until the cord, the hinges were on the exterior for the doors. This has what is called suicide doors, which open out this way, and you can see the plush interior there. It's really a comfortable car and a pleasure to drive. Another feature on this car, this was the first car to have flush taillights and a flush gas filler with a cover over it. So a very streamlined, very beautiful car, very sought after today. Auburn Cord Duesenberg Club, by the way, will be here the weekend before Labor Day for a mini meet. We invite you all to come down. We'll have cars on display here at the museum and throughout the park during that time period. Our last acquisition that we have car-wise was this 1935 Auburn. We were looking at possibly buying it. We found it, a couple out near Washington, D.C. had it, and we were in negotiations when they called up and said they had blown the engine, and would we like to have the car? If we paid for the transportation back to Connersville, we could have it. We have the engine out of it right now, but it is being repaired and hope to have this out and running soon. This car was an export car. The speedometer is in kilometers, and it was shipped in 1935 to Oslo, Norway, for the ambassador of the United States to Norway. Anthony Joseph Biddle Jr. was the ambassador, and I've read about him. They said he was a man of impeccable dress, and if you see his picture, that is true. So this car would fit a man of impeccable dress. It's not been restored. It has been repainted, but very unique color scheme here with the green and the red wheels, which really show up against that green. I was told one time that those two colors together are the color of money, and I guess old money was green with red on it. So it's just a beautiful car. We're very fortunate to have the cars we have. We have room for one more back here. I would like to see someday that the museum acquire a World War II Jeep. Here at Central Manufacturing in Connersville during World War II, there were 500,000 Jeep bodies made, and they were shipped to both Willys and Ford for the war effort. Also 250,000 Jeep body trailers. So we really contributed to the war effort during World War II, and I think it would only be fitting if we had one. Our local businessman, Roger Wells, has one, and maybe you've seen it set in front of his store from time to time. You know, before there were automobiles, there were horse-drawn carriages, and we have some nice examples here. Out in the lobby is a McFarlane carriage. Over here is a McFarlane Surrey that we got last year. The Altrusa members helped us purchase that, as it came from Buffalo, New York area, and was in that same family for 100 years. So it's a Surrey with a fringe on top. This is a Rex doctor's cab, and it makes sense that it's enclosed, that a doctor could go make house calls in this, and it's from Rex Manufacturing. Of course, many of us remember Rex, the forerunner of Philco and Ford here in Connersville. They also built automobile bodies later. Another thing here in the car room, transportation room, I'd like to point out that I know you will all remember is the drinking plus driving equals disaster sign that was hung for so many years up in front of the entrance of Roberts Park. We were given that one when the one they have now replaced it. One other item before we leave the car room is the Penrose Trophy. Penrose Trophy was awarded to us because we had won the Pikes Peak Hill Climb 2 times, and the people out at Pikes Peak would really like to have that trophy back, but it's found its home back here where it belongs at the Fayette County Historical Museum. Here is a picture of one of the cars that won that, old number 7 with the trophy, and that's over in front of Commercial Printing where the Lexington showroom and dealership was here in Connersville. So we'll move on now to some other areas in the museum. I want to take you in and show you a couple of interesting items that we have in here in our meeting room. One of the items, and we have a couple of these, I think there's one over at Canal House, is a hair wreath. These wreaths were made from hair from families' deceased members. They would cut some of their hair upon their death, boil the oil out of them, and then be crocheted into what you see there. We bring school kids in here and they think that's kind of creepy. I think it's kind of cool. Another item we have is the Krell player piano. Pianos were made here by Krell. This is called an auto player, and would have been some of the people maybe that were a little more well-to-do could afford such a player piano. This one was sold in 1919 for $419, which back on today's standards that doesn't seem like a lot, but back in the 1900s that was a lot of money. One of our people that had gone before us was Finley Gray. Finley Gray was mayor of Connersville and later was the congressman from the 10th district from Connersville. That district was pretty big over east central Indiana. Many of you maybe remember going through a town on US 52 on your way to Indianapolis that when sign used to say Carrollton or Finley. It just says Carrollton now. The people of Carrollton wanted a post office. They didn't have one. Finley Gray helped them get one. That's why they used to call it Carrollton or Finley. Another Gray, his daughter, Mary Gray, that we know the bird sanctuary is named for her. Now you look at her, a pretty girl, and you look at Finley. I don't think Finley could get elected today with that gruff look on his face. We'll move on in now to the kitchen. We think we have a very unique kitchen. This refrigerator right here, I remember when my dad brought one of these home from Philco, as he worked there in a plant, and employees could get these at a discount. But it's a very nice older style refrigerator that many of us remember, with these ice cube trays. They didn't have automatic ice cube makers then, and boy, if you didn't fill that up, if you were a kid and you got ice out of there and Dad came home and he didn't have any ice because you didn't put water back in the tray, you'd be in trouble. Over here are kitchen cabinets made by American Kitchens, and those are still used in many many homes throughout town and all over right now today. I know the basement of the First United Methodist Church still has a big bank of these, and they are still used. A couple years ago, my wife Kathy and I went out to Gettysburg to tour Gettysburg, and one of the attractions there is Dwight Eisenhower's farm. We took a tour through his home, and the last room we went through was the kitchen, and the kitchen had American Kitchens in it, which we thought was pretty cool. Kathy said something to the tour guide about it. He didn't really care, but we thought it was neat. The difference was they had bright green countertops instead of the red like we have here. Connersville, long known for its industrial base, and up into the 80s had more industry per capita than anyone, and we remember D&M. They built dishwashers mostly for Sears Kenmore, and I believe about 80% of the dishwashers in America came from D&M. But this one is a portable model, and it's still new. It still has all the packing, but I'm guessing it was from the mid-1970s, as I built my home in 1976 and had one like this at that time. Another kitchen item here, or dining room item, would be this buffet, which was made by the Connersville Furniture Company. And I'm just amazed at the detail. All that probably had to be done by hand. They didn't have computerized machines like we have now that would be able to form and cut all that. So beautiful example of things that were made here in our hometown of Connersville. Jesse Reynolds started Reynolds Museum, and actually the first museum was upstairs of the old high school, which later became Junior High School and Junior High School South. He had collected a lot of Indian artifacts, Native American artifacts, and we have a lot of that on display. When we bring school children through here, they're always very interested in that. So we can thank Jesse Reynolds for getting things going here for us for historic Connersville. We'll move on now to the Pioneer Room, where we have reconstructed a log cabin and what it might have been like back in pioneer times here in early Connersville or early Fayette County area. The smallness of this, and maybe several members of a family would live in a cabin about this square footage, and they would have a loft above where they would sleep. You can see the pot hanging over the fire, what would be the fire, and the mother back there with her head back looks like she's just wore out to me. But, also, we have a lot of tools from back early in the 1800s that were used. This item right here was a cream separator that you put the raw milk in and turn the crank and it would separate. This is a butter churn, a little unusual from what we're used to seeing in a butter churn, but nonetheless is one, and just a lot of old pioneer tools. Got a very beautiful stove here, potbelly type stove that would be used, and got a picture right here of from 1952 of gentlemen sitting around a potbelly stove and probably telling a lot of stories as they would at the time. Some things on the wall, businesses that I hadn't heard of, but Bailey Furniture Company says makes happy homes, 412 Central Avenue in Connersville, and then there's a sideboard off of a wagon up high on the wall that J.W. Ross and Company, Connersville, Indiana. Not sure what they sold, but a nice example. In here, some medical type items, and it's very interesting. We have a sign that would have been hanging over a door to a dentist's office that says Dr. U.B. Tingley. One thing I always show school children when they come through is this little tool right here, which is a tooth puller. You would put that in your mouth, hook that over a tooth, and turn it real fast and jerk the tooth out. Before there were dentists, you would go to your local barber to have your teeth pulled, which is kind of interesting. If you saw that striped pole, you know that you get your hair cut and a tooth pulled at the same time. Here are some boards, beams that naturally are rotted away, but those come out of a lock here in the Whitewater Canal. Our museum sits right on the banks of the Whitewater Canal, and Grand Avenue that filled it in several years ago, and I know many of you probably remember the canal as I do. Here in the schoolroom, we have displays from all the county schools. We've got a nice display here of CHS band. Of course, the first high school band for credit in the United States, Dr. Otto Miesner, started that, and we have that distinct recognition of that. We have all the county schools and displays. Of course, Connersville is the only school left high school left in the county, but some nice displays, a lot on Orange. The scoreboard, which still lights up, came out of Orange High School. When it burned, the basketball team went in and took it down off the wall while the school was on fire and saved it, and it was used at the elementary school for years. So it's pretty neat to have. We have a great heritage over the years of high school basketball, as we all know, here in Connersville and Fayette County. It's too bad it came to an abrupt end just on Wednesday night. But, somewhere, I'm looking for now, but I'll tell you about it. We have a banner from Everton High School. They were the only school in Connersville to ever win the Connersville sectional, the only county school to win the Connersville sectional. So we're very pleased to have that. Some of the other items we have in here are about our rich heritage of manufacturing. We've got a radiator there, a NASCAR radio from Visteon when they were here and made that. Porcelain Steel Corporation, later H.H. Robertson. We've got glass here in a box from the Twin Towers. We did not make the glass here, but Benson Aluminum pushed the extrusions, and then H.H. Robertson drilled and formed the extrusions. The glass went in for the Twin Towers in New York City. So a lot of that exterior came from right here in Connersville. Several displays of Roots blowers. Of course, Roots still in business, and we're very pleased to have them still with us. A couple of items that were made here. This is called a ropeller, which was a hand-cranked trolling motor for boaters or for fishermen, which I find very interesting. And then, how many remember this? I remember seeing these, that exercisers. LeMayco made them here, Lincoln Manufacturing Company. That building still stands over on East 10th Street by the grain elevators, where they made truck transmissions, but they made exercisers as well. So, kind of brings us to the last of what we have here in the museum. Well, I would say we probably have a lot more, but for our tour here today, we have a military area dating back Civil War artifacts, as well as up through World War II. You know, we're very proud of what we have here in Connersville and of our heritage, and would hope that you could come and visit us. We're open from 10 to 3 Saturdays and Sundays, and would sure love to see you here. We take donations. Membership in Historic Connersville is $15 a year for individuals and $25 for families. So we'd invite you to become a member. We have lots of items for sale in our gift shop, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.